It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Today on the Happy Families Podcast, something that you may not have heard about before. It's called the region beta paradox. The region beta paradox, Kylie, do you like it when I use those really big words? It's something very useful. Have you heard of the region beta paradox?
Come on, this is not a doctor's desk.
No, it's not.
What are you doing?
Okay, here's the very short version of what the region beta paradox is and why it applies to parenting. There are these things in life that are mildly annoying, but we put up with them. A case in point, I've got a headlight on my car that is flickering at the moment, and it's annoying, but it seems like it's going to be more annoying to have to go into the shop and get it fixed up because headlights on cars are annoying and there's stuff. And so I'm just dealing with the flickering headlight. But when I drive at night, it looks like I'm flashing people in the cars in front of me. Like flashing with my headlights, just want to clarify that. And that can become embarrassing. And I've had a couple of people give me dirty looks like they think that I'm telling them that they're not driving well. And it's leading to problems. Here's another example, a sore knee, but it's not bad enough to see the doctor.
What about the dripping, drip outside my window?
Oh, the gutter that leaks?
The gutter that leaks?
Yeah, the pile of stuff in the
It's amazing. It's like the smallest sound.
I'll make you a deal.
That you can hear.
I'll make you a deal. You fix up the pile of pictures and mess that you've got in the corner of my office that's been driving me crazy for a couple of months, and I'll do something about the gutter.
I can't believe you're saying that. We've just painted the walls and you don't want holes back in there.
So the region beta paradox is this. Over time, these more mild discomforts,
like the way you leave socks under the table,
all these mildly discomforting,
or don't put the toilet seat down,
relationships. Hey,
or steal my pillow.
Can I just be really clear? I am very good with the toilet seat and have been for 27 years.
Sometimes.
I'm very, very good with that. 6 daughters, and let's move on. These mild discomforts and these mild and challenging relationships can end up lasting much longer.
Did you just say our relationship was challenging?
No.
Did you just...
We've got a podcast to do here. This is getting a little bit challenging. I'm going to start that again. What I said was the paradox, the region beta paradox is very, very simple.
I have to lighten this up. It's not a doctor's desk, you know.
These mildly now I can't even speak. These mildly challenging things or these mildly challenging relationships and people can end up becoming very, very, very challenging across the long term and cause you more upset and more damage than a situation or a person or an event or a leaky gutter. If you just go and deal with it, but we think that it's you get the really acutely upsetting stuff and you act on it. Right?
Yeah, but it's the squeaky wheel. It's that concept, right? The squeaky wheel gets the most attention.
Well, I don't know, because the gutter is a squeaky wheel, but it's not quite squeaky enough.
No, it's not.
That's the point.
It's not urgent.
Exactly. So something that is quite acute and upsetting, you take action straight away and you resolve it, and then the distress doesn't last. But the cumulative total of the days and the weeks and the months and the years of that drip, that makes it all too much. And what I want to talk about today is how this applies in parenting, how it applies in relationships, how it applies for couples, because I think that the region beta paradox is one of the most interesting psychological phenomena that nobody ever talks about. So that's our conversation.
I wonder why.
Today.
It needs a better name.
Well, we're 3.5 minutes in and I've only just finished the description of what it is, which is not a good indicator of where this podcast is going.
Okay.
I'm blaming you. I could have had that done in 30 seconds. You've really made that hard.
Do parents sometimes overlook those minor annoyances?
All the time, because they think that it's insignificant compared to a major problem. And so our child's whingy, whiny thingy, we just kind of go, oh, all right, I'll deal with it later because I'm tired and I've got other things on my plate. And so we don't deal with it.
So I'm thinking of one of our daughters. She's always had an anxious disposition. And I talked to you about it and you said, no, it'll be fine.
Yeah, we're handling it.
But over time, it has exacerbated.
Yeah.
It has gotten worse and we've actually needed to seek medical attention.
So what he's saying, maybe if we'd addressed it earlier, I feel like I'm about to have some fingers pointed at me.
No, it's not a finger-pointing thing, but it's an acknowledgement that sometimes we look at these things and kind of just brush it off. I don't know how many times the parents kind of said to me, I thought they just, rolled over and hurt themselves and 2 days later take them to the doctor.
Got a broken arm.
And they've got a broken arm.
Yeah. So
it's really hard because there's a fine line, right? You go the other way and you become almost like a helicopter parent who jumps on every symptom.
And drives everyone crazy.
That's right.
Including the kids. if you speak about the issue with the anxiety with this particular daughter, I think you're right. I mean, I've got a PhD in psychology, and I'm saying, yeah, there's definitely something going on here, but we've got this. Like, we've got the skills, we've got the capacity to deal with this. And yet, when you dismiss that whining or the interrupting or the anxiety or the nerves or whatever, it's just a phase. If you leave it unaddressed, as we discovered with our child, even though we are pretty well equipped to manage this stuff, I thought these behaviours can become habitual and they can cause distress for the child. They can cause dysfunction. They can strain relationships. You get a child who, let's say you've got an ADHD kid, constantly interrupting. And what happens is if we don't help them and if we don't work through things here and create an environment that's going to be supportive and help them to function effectively, maybe they struggle to listen attentively in school or social situations, and that exacerbates things for them again.
I think it's really important to understand that small annoyances in our children can have a significant impact on the dynamic within our family or the child's development if left unaddressed.
And that's the main thing that I'm really highlighting. It's not you get this region beta paradox where you're saying, okay, it's annoying. Okay, I'll deal with it one day. If it gets any worse, I'll go and see the doctor. I'll go and see the psychologist, go and see the school counsellor. But that day never really arrives until kaboom, and then it becomes really acute. But that might be a couple of years down the road, and you've created these patterns, you've created these systems, and potentially you've even inadvertently created, with the best of intentions, a whole lot of dysfunction around the relationship or just in the child because it hasn't passed that threshold of discomfort. It's been mildly annoying, but not uncomfortable enough to act on, but it really needed to be acted on. It's like when you hurt your knee and you'd rather limp on it for 2.5 years before you go and see the surgeon. Right.
It's interesting because as we're talking about this, I'm actually thinking about one of our daughters. When she was younger, she actually said very few words for the first 3 years. And then literally woke up on her 3rd birthday, having only given us single word responses to everything for 3 years, and says, "Mum, can I have a drink of water?" And it blew us away. But from that moment on, she has not stopped talking. She's an adult now. She has not stopped talking at a rapid pace. But after her next sister came along and she was the same. We hardly got any words out of her. And I just thought, oh, okay, we're following a pattern. Everything will be fine. She was a completely different child, and we ended up spending significant time and years with her in speech pathology.
Yeah, I think she was maybe 6 or 7 before she was speaking properly. It was a really big deal, but we let that go.
Because of previous experience.
Well, yeah, and because we thought she was kind of making progress until we realised, hang on, there is a threshold here and we probably need to lower our threshold and get help earlier as a result. There's something else to consider here as well, and that is the constant barrage of minor stresses like whining and like sibling squabbles and the bedtime battles and the fussy eating. They can also, it's not just about the child's function and how well they're doing. They can also impact our well-being and contribute to burnout. It's kind of, for a parent, it's like Chinese water torture. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. Every single one of these small stresses just keeps on chipping away at our patience and our energy. We become exhausted. We become irritable. We become sometimes resentful towards our children. And that, again, is this region beta paradox. We probably need to talk about solutions, but I just find it's such a fascinating thing, and I want to make sure that we explain it properly.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is then when we feel stressed as parents, our kids pick up on that. Then it adds to the stress and the cycle of negativity that we're experiencing. And when we're stressed, we're not at our best either. So we're reacting harshly to our kids. Like there's so many different dynamics that we look at.
When you're just saying this, the US Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, a couple of months ago, he put out a health advisory warning on parenting. He literally said, parenting can be bad for your mental health. Be careful. Don't go into this blindfolded. It's a really, really serious thing.
Okay, so you've got a psychology PhD.
Right.
How can parents reframe their perspective on these small, minor annoyances? Because it's the kids, it's work stuff, it's school stuff, it's financial stuff, and all those bits and pieces hanging over their heads all the time.
All right, let's move quickly because our time is running out and we spent a lot of time just talking about this paradox. I'm going to give an example. Let's look at kids that are being whiny, because we've dealt with that pretty consistently over the years, and most families will admit that this comes up a lot. And the Roblox whining has been, what's the word? quite durable lately. It's just kept
Incessant?
on going. So instead of seeing whining as defiance or as a kid who isn't listening and who isn't getting it, we can view it as a way of communicating an unmet need. And a couple of weeks ago on I'll Do Better Tomorrow, you were so eloquent in the way you did this. That need, in our daughter's case, has very little to do with Roblox. It's about friends. It's about social contact. And so this is an empathy opportunity. It's just that we're so exhausted that we don't want to be doing the empathy.
But that's it, isn't it? We're exhausted. As parents, I think across the board, everyone I speak to is in the same boat. Even people that previously I've spoken to are completely content with their lives, are really feeling the weight and pressure of life as we know it now. It's really hard.
So let me go back to empathy. Okay, we've got this behavior that is a bit annoying and we just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Or alternatively, we crack, which doesn't do anything for anybody. I actually want to focus on self-regulation here. Self-regulation is vital. It's about intention. But it's also taxing to be self-regulated. That's a really big challenge. The definition of self-regulation or emotional regulation is suppressing or expressing your emotions appropriately for the context in harmony with your values or goals. Okay, so if you blow up, you're expressing yourself, but not necessarily. You've got a short-term goal. You want compliance. You want the kids to just be quiet. But the long-term goal is quite different, and that is for our children to be able to thrive and to do well here. So we've got to have honest, empathic, clear conversations with our children because that's going to get us to the long-term goal. It's the explore, explain, empower conversations. And we can only do that if we're well-regulated, if we're emotionally balanced. And I reckon that if we can do that and model it, we're also going to be much more effective at teaching kids the calming techniques they need, like taking a deep breath or taking a break. That sort of stuff will help as well. And then the region beta paradox takes care of itself because people are better regulated, people are functioning better. We don't seem to have the same challenges.
So you're making this sound like it's very easy, self-regulation,
Yes.
when we've just
Yes.
acknowledged that we are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and exhausted.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about self-care because parents can't be self-regulated if they're not taking care of their own emotional well-being.
So let me ask you, I travel a lot. I'm not here a lot. You're the one that's actually in the heat of the furnace much more than I am around this. What would you say about self-care?
You have to be absolutely intentional. And I guess from the outside looking in, you could even say you have to be selfish with some time. I wouldn't call it selfishness because I think it's imperative, but it's so easy as a mum, and I think mums struggle with it more than dads.
No doubt.
But it is so hard to say, I actually need to go for a walk for half an hour because there is a to-do list that is bigger than you're going to get through in any given day anyway. And so the idea that you would take a little bit of time out for yourself feels like it's a cop-out or it's a waste of time compared to everything else that needs to happen. And I'm watching it more and more with friends and family who say, I don't have time to connect with my friends. That is probably one of the biggest self-care things that we can do as women.
Love it.
We need each other. We need community. But we spend so much time being overwhelmed with our to-do list that we scrap that because it's not imperative to the way our family functions.
Okay,
and yet
so
I think we've got it all wrong.
So I'm going to wrap this up fairly quickly now. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, but just on what you've highlighted with the whole self-care issue. You've tapped into something that's absolutely vital, and that is the importance of quality relationships, making sure that you make time for other people. That's really at the heart of it. And anything else that you choose to do has to be rejuvenating, which would mean in 99.9% of cases, it should not involve your screen because your screen, it depletes you, it de-energizes you, it takes you in exactly the opposite direction. And if you have a good half an hour sit on the couch staring at your screen, you very rarely, if ever, jump to your feet and say, well, I feel so much better now, I'm ready to go again. You kind of just sit there and feel increasingly depleted. It really does zap your energy. So they're the two things that I'd say. Build those connections, find ways to connect with other people, and stay off the screens. Now, like I said, there's one more thing that I really want to touch on. We are out of time, so I have to go through it really fast, but I think that it matters a great deal, and that's how parents can differentiate between typical child behaviours and potential underlying issues that require intervention. Okay, this region beta paradox. We're looking at this stuff that's annoying. It's a niggle, but we don't do anything about it and we've talked about it in terms of anxiety in our family and also ADHD in our family. We haven't touched on that, but in both instances, there's been niggle, and we've decided to put it off and put it off and put it off. In 2 cases now with our kids, you have been the one that picked up on it. I've acknowledged it. I've seen that it's there, but I've had it'll be right. We'll just deal with it. I've had that approach, whereas you've had a different approach. I've said it's below the threshold. We're handling it. You've stepped in and your mama's spidey senses have kicked into the point where you've essentially convinced me to take it more seriously, and you've been right both times. So what I would say is this: as a parent, when you're dealing with these region beta issues and you're concerned that it might be something else, consider the frequency, consider the intensity, consider the duration of the behaviors that are dripping. And if it's persistent, if it's causing significant distress, or if it's interfering with function and daily life, it is worth exploring it with a professional. You will get better guidance than doing what I did and saying it'll be right.
I think the other thing that's really important, one of our children has had a significant health challenge for many years, but I would go to the doctor regularly and tell them that this was not right. What was happening with her was not normal. And we would do all of the tests and they would all come back clear. And I did that for, 10 years?
At least.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
Because every 12 months I'd go, we can't keep going like this.
Yep. And this is a great example of a region beta paradox.
I think that, again, you just have to trust your gut on this stuff and keep pushing through until you find the answers.
Well, that also highlights another reality, and that is that it might be above your threshold, but then you go and see a medical practitioner or a mental health practitioner and they say, oh, this is just a minor niggle. Mm-hmm. For them, it's a region beta issue. And you're going, but this has been a minor niggle for 10 years now. It needs surgery. If I had a minor niggle in my knee for 10 years, I would go and get something done about it. So deal with the niggles. Get on top of them. It matters. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. For more on making your family happier and working on that self-regulation, check out our social pages on Facebook and Instagram, or visit us at happyfamilies.com.au.